What's poppin', players? Welcome back to a Two Penny Games review. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello, how are you all doing today on this wonderful evening?
Hello. Connor, you are our lead reviewer today. Tell me what you've been playing.
Well, I've been playing mouthful, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, the remake of Crisis Core from back in 2007, a prequel to Final Fantasy VII. As someone that hasn't played the original game, I beat it in around 12 hours. I saw that people were saying it takes 18 hours to beat. I beat it in 12. Overall, I had a lot of fun with it. The new era of Final Fantasy VII has a very good combat system. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I should specify. And thankfully, this one also has a very good one. I'm aware that it had a kind of a slot-based system, which they implement here, but they kind of went to a more action-adventure-focused gameplay as opposed to a weird, unique take on Final Fantasy as they did with the past game. So the gameplay is definitely the highlight of it. It's super fast-paced, super fun. Lots of classic Final Fantasy VII abilities and spells that if you're a longtime Final Fantasy fan, you probably know what to expect in that regard. Overall, while I did enjoy it, the writing isn't the best, nor is the voice acting, which there is a lot of content in that regard, so you're going to hear a lot of things that don't exactly sound too pleasing, which is especially disappointing with the main voice actor, Zach, who they had a voice actor change from the old game, who was perfect for it, to one that's not so perfect. Additionally, it's got some graphical issues in the back end of things. Not really too much of the character models, not much of the enemy designs. That it's more background stuff. Kind of has the same problem Final Fantasy VII Remake had. But despite these issues, at the core, the gameplay's fun. So the game is fun. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I'm about 4-ish hours into the game myself. I've been doing a healthy amount of side content. So I'm only in I think I just got to the end of chapter 3, or I'm in the middle of chapter 3, somewhere in there, I think. And I echo a lot of your sentiments. The combat system's a lot of fun. I think the slot system is unique and a fun twist on Final Fantasy VII gameplay. As always, the materia system is fucking awesome. It feels so good to level up your different spells and casts and abilities and so forth in the way that you do. Yeah, I echo pretty much every other sentiment you've said. The story is kind of whatever. The dialogue is pretty bad. And the voice acting at times is super spotty. But the gameplay and the epic moments that it is able to conjure are epic. In terms of like your graphical side of things, it doesn't look the best, but it's a PSP game. They went a little more traditional with it, and clearly they didn't have as much budget as, say, a full Final Fantasy scoped game. This was definitely a smaller side project. But yeah, as someone who's playing Crisis Core for the first time, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I intend to carry on through the end, especially since you're saying it's only about 12 hours for you to beat it. How much side stuff did you do?
I did a pretty healthy amount until near the final act of the game, the third act of the game. At that point, I was kind of just like, okay, I'm here for the story, and I kind of want to get through the bad parts of it, because I'm a Final Fantasy VII fan, but as someone who hasn't played this one, I hadn't even watched any walkthroughs or cutscene gameplays of the original one, so I was pretty blind as to the events that happened in this game. Obviously, knowing the ending, which I won't say anything, but it's pretty obvious
if you played Final Fantasy VII in any form, you know what the ending of this game is.
Yes, which that, as far as like the thing about this game is they dive into Final Fantasy VII stuff, like stuff that happened in the original game. They cover back again in this one, a little bit more depth for obvious reasons. But I noticed there was a shift in the level of writing, mainly because it's just the subject matter of Final Fantasy VII was better than the subject matter of this game. Because going back to the dialogue real quick, a lot of this game has like very annoying dialogue. Mm-hmm. Like the main villain, his entire thing is he's obsessed with this play called Loveless. So he recites it almost the entire. I don't think he says like any original words, except for like maybe 20 lines. Everything else is just him reciting things that relate to the plot, but you don't know what the hell he's talking about, and it's it's very confusing, especially when they start talking about being able to swap their genes down. Or I think what was the word? What was the
I
word they used?
I have no
Genes.
idea. I'm not that far.
Oh, okay. It gets very strange. The story gets very strange with the way they deliver it to you. But I did notice there was a shift to a better storytelling style when they were focusing on Final Fantasy VII stuff, because it started introducing those elements to the game, which aren't really prevalent in most of this game. Since it is an overall standalone title, it is a prequel, so obviously you're going to get things spoiled, but it has its own story that is completely unique to Final Fantasy VII as an IP. Um, but aside from that, the only other part where this game's story really shines is the ending. It has a very good ending, which is the important part because that's the thing that everyone knows happens if you play Final Fantasy VII.
And it was the thing you had to get right.
Yes,
like
it was.
with this level of presentation, cutscenes, and graphicals, even on the PSP, it was what you had to get right. And I imagine to sort of absolve or provide reasoning for your issues with the shift, like in quality when it starts aping the Final Fantasy VII story. I think they were excited to bring that to this game, and I'm talking to the original Crisis Core, of course. They were excited to do that with the graphics that they had available to them that weren't back in the day when they initially told us the story of Final Fantasy VII. So they knew they had a banger in that part, and then they were like, all right, well, that's not a full game. We have to bring a full game to this. Mm-hmm. So here, I guess, is the feeling I'm getting from that. And obviously I haven't gotten to that point, so I don't know for myself, but from what you're telling me, that's what I would imagine happened.
Yeah, I'll just tell you right off the bat, you're spot on. Like, it literally moments from Final Fantasy VII that are in this game have a lot of focus on them. And it's because it's graphically better. And sometimes it feels out of place. Like, for example, it recreates the famous Sephiroth in the flame shot. You see him before that cutscene plays, and he's clearly not in the situation he's in that famous cutscene. But when it goes into it, you care a lot less because it looks cool and it looks updated and new. Not by our standards, but by the standards of the time. It was like, wow, this looks so cool. We get to see it in HD with super detailed facial expressions rather than polygons, and using the technology it had back in 1997. And it does that a couple times, and it's always cool. Unfortunately, to that end, there is a moment in one of the fights where I got flashbacks to Resident Evil 6, where the stage change, the area change that occurred, made no sense at all, especially in the grand scheme of where that scene was taking place. It kind of shocked me because I was like, well, that doesn't really make... How are you all of a sudden in this space when I know that in the original game, you never even got to this space before? I can't say much without spoiling it for those that haven't done it, because,
who has
admittedly,
not played Final Fantasy VII at this point or know the story?
Exactly. The only reason I'm being not specific on it is because some people who hadn't played Final Fantasy have joined on in this new remake setting, which overall might not be the best idea, but that's the way it is. And so some people are playing this game for the first time. It's the only reason.
Hoping to fill in some gaps here or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I should mention, by the way, this gameplay that's playing. I got the right house on my first try. Felt very proud of that at the time.
Well, they very much point the camera at the house and say, "Go here." Like, so I did this for experience and for grinding is why I did this.
Well, I think I was pretty smart during all this. I think I did the out of the box thing. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I did the smart thing. Yeah, I'm smart.
Okay. So since we're on it, let's break down some gameplay real quick. So, you're going to see very similar mechanics to what we had in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 15, and what I assume we're getting in 16. That's all new, right? With the hack and slash and the like mash your button type stuff. That's the new stuff, yeah?
Yeah, it started with 15, but the style of it that Final Fantasy VII Remake had is a more refined version of that, which it seems like they're drawing off that more than Final Fantasy 15, which combat could be too easy. But they made it too, with the shift that they made. They made it too easy. So they, as you said, they found a perfect spot, and now they're going off of that, and so it does play very similar to Final Fantasy.
In the original game, was it hack and slash, or was it more like just turn-based, or what was it back in the day? Do you know?
See, since I didn't play it and I hadn't seen any gameplay stuff at all, I can't say for certain. All I do know is that it seemed to be primarily focused on the slot system, from my perception. So it probably worked in some weird more complex way. You know, when I had seen gameplay of the old one, which is why I think it's just solely slot based because that's all I saw. And it was the person playing it was doing things that I couldn't comprehend. So I can't really speak too strongly on the original game because I didn't have a PSP.
Yeah. Well, and then to speak to the slot system that we keep talking about, it's called the DMW system. I forget what it's an acronym for, but it's a slot system where as you're battling, in the background, the game is spending your SP points, your soldier points, which are just like a background thing. You get soldier points for doing literally anything in this game. And the game is spending those points in the background to run this slot machine that you saw on your hood. On the HUD that was playing a few minutes ago before this cutscene, and basically like characters of Final Fantasy VII will cycle through, and if you get matching characters, like if you get 3 Sephiroths in a row, you unlock one of his abilities to use as a finisher. What is it called? It's called not called. Slash. No. I know Sephiroth, the type of move that it's called.
Limit Break. Limit Break. The classic big damage attack.
Yeah.
Or healing attack, depending on who it is.
Yeah, so whoever you're matching is their thing. So like, and then like all the characters are silhouetted until you meet them in the story or you find them throughout some other means. So for example, like Cloud's classic Limit Break, I've already done a few times, and it takes you to a different stage and a cool cinematic plays, and it's just a way to like deal out a bunch of stylistic damage. And then, but as the slots are running, other factors are a thing. There's numbers tied to each slot, which determines how powerful the attack will be. There are, if you don't get a full match, and you get like 2 out of 3 or like a specific combination of things, it'll grant you certain boosts during active combat. For example, like no limits on MP or magic points, so you could just spam your magic attacks all you want, or your ability points, or so on and so forth. Things like that. So it creates sort of just an in the background way to like kind of make it dynamic and in a way of like, it sort of gives you the edge when you meet that classic JRPG problem of, well, I've run out of magic points. I don't have any potions. I'm screwed in this fight. This is a way to where like the game can still keep going and you can still, dodge and weave the enemy attacks and, pray that the slot machines work in your favor. To get some real big heavy attacks. The summons work this way too, where like every once in a while the slot machine will turn into summon mode, and a summon will come out, and you'll get the ability to use it, and it'll play at this huge, big, giant, super polished cinematic of Infrit coming through and blowing a dude up, or Bahamut blowing a dude up or whatever, and it's just to add some cinematic flair and style to the combat. But it's appreciated, and I actually really like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. The slot system as a whole just added that RNG element that you don't usually see in games like this, but it was very welcome. It would freshen up gameplay whenever it came up, because it's not like it constantly gives you things over and over and over again. Sometimes it can, but that's really just luck of the roll as opposed to the system just working that way. So, and it's coming in clutch in a lot of times, which only was really an issue in the first half of the game, because to me, this game is extremely easy on normal. After a certain point, I just started having basically no issue.
Okay, so that will change, because there are certain fights now that are whooping my ass.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I currently like the rematch with Bahamut. I did it again. What is it? Bahamut? Yeah. The rematch with Bahamut was whooping my ass. There are side missions in the game that you use to train up and get new materia and new moves and stuff. As you get deeper into those lists, they get really hard. And it's a weird flip where it's not a steady progression of difficulty. It's I'm killing it. Okay, I'm stuck. I can't do anything against this guy. Like, it's almost like God of War style, where like you're just max levels. The only thing that matters, the other stats, not so much. Which is pretty annoying in my opinion. And then it's just a matter of like, it's either a fair fight or not a fair fight, and that's really it. It's just a switch that gets flipped.
Just because I also can't help it here. You were using Dark Thunder. From what I can tell, if you're trying to exploit elemental weaknesses, it does less in that regard. It's more focused on like doing the things that it also does, like casting silence on your poison, doing other effects.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And I haven't fully built because I was just playing around with the different moves and stuff, and I don't know if I had regular thunder at this point in the game. Maybe I did, and I just thought, oh, dark thunder, it does this thing. It also does this thing. Let me do that. But they give you different what is it called? Not play sets. Different. What are they called? Not classes. You know what I'm talking about.
Sets. I think they're just called sets.
Yeah, different sets where you get to like make your own collection of equipments, which is something I wish Final Fantasy VII Remake had. So I really like that in this game, and I hope they carry that over into the next game, Rebirth. Because yeah, right now like I'm carrying like a basic set with every elemental that and one action skill, and then I've got another set that's just ice powers. And so like I plan on building out ice, fire, lightning, and then having my default one that I run until I need to use a different type of elemental damage or something. So I really, really appreciate that. At this point in the recorded gameplay, I didn't have that built out, and I barely have it built out now.
Yeah, it is a nice. I really do hope they add that in Final Fantasy VII, especially because it just cuts down on menu use.
Yep.
So if you run it, because obviously you'll be fighting someone that's very more susceptible to physical attacks, and this is the case with any RPG if you've ever played one. And then all of a sudden they'll be resistant to it, and so you have to swap the magic. So you don't have to go and change every single materia or most of the materia you need to just be able to do that efficiently.
Do wish I could change it in combat.
Yeah. I think the reason they didn't want you to have too much flexibility in just being able to dominate any combat situation you get into, which makes sense.
Yes, but like that, I feel like that's simply solved by putting in an animation of Zack switching something like switching his sword or something, and that taking a matter of time to where you could get hit or something like that. You know what I mean? So you like don't be a fucking idiot when you switch. It can even be a long animation, which would make sense because you're changing all your powers out, It's just a matter of like, why can't I do that? To my knowledge, the D-pad isn't doing anything, right? I guess the D-pad is to navigate. No, it's not. The D-pad doesn't really do anything in this game, does it?
Yeah, I don't recall it doing much either.
Because in combat, because when you're out of combat, you can press down on the D-pad to like use all your potions, which I've used a few times, and I've always felt like it uses too many potions. I also wish there was a way through quick inputs that I could use Cure without having to go into the menu. I could do that in 7 Remake, could I not? Or am I misremembering that?
Could you? You could do it in this game, though. You just need to hold down L for Cure?
In combat, but out of combat, it doesn't let you.
Oh, no, it does not. No, the only way you can do it quickly is with the potions. And like I said, for anyone, just to warn you, it does, for other people that haven't played it, it does use way too many potions. Like,
way too many.
It's not a good way. Yeah, you better off just going and manually doing that. So it's not even a useful function.
I've found it more useful to backtrack the 2 minutes to a save point to refill my health and stamina,
Yeah. And, since I don't think I touched on it enough, the combat is kind of, it's very much, aside from any of the spinning, you have access to all of the different materia that you can access with the or abilities, skills, which spend AP points and magic points if you use spells. You just hold down L1 and you press the designated button to activate those abilities, which you use in tandem with just running around, blocking with R1, and striking with the square button. So it's very active time battles, not active time battle system. That's the way. That's the system where you stand in one place and do everything. You're a lot more active with running around and dodging things, more so even than Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Well, what's funny is that was in the original game. You just had to dig into the menus to find it, or it was in 7 Remake. You just had to dig in and find it. But just the way 7 Remake plays, it was just so much easier to just get that like slowdown effect and like think about your next move. Because the abilities mattered so much more in that game than they do in this. Your regular attacks do a hefty amount of damage. In 7 Remake, those would do close to nothing. It was just more for to keep your dumb goblin brain engaged and to fill up your meter faster. Whereas in this, Zack's basic attacks are doing real damage.
Mm-hmm. And it does delve into that a little bit more when you do. I'll just tell you this right now, Tavin. When you get the Buster Sword, which is inevitably going to happen.
Yeah.
When that point comes in, if you kind of do something, I would keep referencing back to remake. It's similar. It has something similar to the Punisher mode, where you press square and X, and you go into a heavier attack that doesn't allow you to be staggered and does larger amounts of critical damage. And so it
That's
also
in this game?
Yes, it's in this game.
Oh, okay.
It's like I said, it's similar to the Punisher system, which in Final Fantasy VII Remake, if you press triangle, it would go into a non-staggerable stance where you just hit really hard, but you know just kind of have to accept that you're going to get hit more often in that mode. Same way with this one. So it does shake up combat more in that way, but overall it is pretty simple and button mashing when use those abilities with in tandem of those regular attacks to expose weaknesses or just maximize your damage output. So it's the highlight of this game. It's very fun combat.
Yeah. I like 7 Remake's combat more, if we're just going to compare the one to the other, but this one's fun. Like it requires a lot less thought. It's the difficulty spikes are more just based off of level, not so much off of like, oh, I didn't use my abilities the best that I could. Really, it's just, oh, I have magic points and this guy's weak to ice. All right, I'm spamming ice, or the slot system worked out to where I have infinite MP for the next 15 seconds. I'm spamming ice. This, that, and the third. They do try and give some depth to it, where like all of your abilities, whether they're magic or physical, do more damage if you do them at the end of a regular combo, which is appreciated to have that level of depth, but it's barely better. Like,
I don't know that, because that was what was carrying me through the game. Is that
really?
Because I had a big focus on not magic but AP, and those would do massive amounts of damage in some cases. One of them I got was Exploding Blade, which I'd never needed to swap that out. It was useful on any enemy that wasn't even ones resistant to physical damage. It would still do so much that it would kind of overcome that barrier. You would still obviously want to use magic because they have a barrier up, but they can't get damaged as much by physical attacks. But it certainly made a difference in my playthrough. Obviously, it's not going to be the same for everyone else. It doesn't seem to be the same for you, Tavin.
I'm also early. I don't have that ability yet. So
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, this was a full price game, or was this like a $50?
No. This is oh god, $50? Yeah, it was 50.
That's the new standard for the budget game now. Yeah, okay, that's an appropriate price in my opinion. Like, it's a solid length, good amount of depth, nice little side content stuff that reuses assets and combat arenas. Like, I feel like when I get to the desert level, I'm already going to be sick of running through that arena because I've done it in the training or the side missions so many times already, which is unfortunate. But there's enough like freedom and like not customization but character that you can enact on the gameplay systems to where it doesn't get dull. And I could definitely see this carrying me through to 15 to 20 hours of gameplay there, but certainly I don't think there's anything special with the story so far. And the dialogue, Zach has a line, something about what angels make me a monster or something like that.
Wings.
It's
yeah.
Wings are for monsters. Is that what it is?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and it does something with that. So it's not as bad as you may be thinking.
But he said it, and I went, ugh, really?
Well, yeah, that's a testament of the voice acting, which isn't the best for most characters. For some, it's good. Like some characters, like Aerith, for example, great voice actress. Obviously,
the same actor from the other game?
Yes, it is. Remake.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So is spoiler, Cloud. Gotta give props to that voice actor because he doesn't sound the exact same because it's at a different point in the story of Final Fantasy. Story. Yeah, exactly. And he pulls it off great. He really, after playing 7 Remake, he sounds like a younger version of that Cloud, but only slightly so.
That's exciting to hear.
Yeah, he does a very good job. And to give credit to Zach's voice actor, he gave it his best. He's clearly not like phoning it in or anything like that. But he's just not my personal choice for this kind of voice. And a lot of other fans seem to be saying the same thing.
Yeah. Are there more? There's about to be. We've seen the B-roll footage that I'm playing here. There's about to be like a little mini game thing that I thought was atrocious. Are there more like mini game things like this?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I don't because I remember looking back on it like they didn't implement this in the game at all, and it never came up. Yes, they do a mini game, and it's bad.
It's also bad. Okay, great. More bad mini games.
It's optional though.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, they did this bit where you had to like time your hit with the exploding shell, and I thought it was awful. Like I was like, this doesn't feel good. I don't know when the timing is, and it's awful. And I fuck up, like I do okay at first, and then I start fucking up, and then like the last one they try to like make Zach look cool, and I fucked it up. And so Zach did not look cool.
Oh well. Sometimes that's gonna happen. Sometimes But I clearly it was kind of just a weird thing that was put in the game that never really should have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
So whatever. It's not like it's like I said, it's not an issue constantly. I could struggle to remember it happening a lot at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not exactly what made.
I don't know about you, man, but now, like, just playing the opening hours of this, I have the biggest itch to go back and play the original Final Fantasy VII and then, like, back that up with Remake. And, like, there's something about the world of Final Fantasy VII that, like, just encapsulates you. And you're just in it, and you want to do it all, if only they weren't all 40-hour video games.
Yeah, that kind of puts a hamper on it, especially when at the end of this game, I'll tell you this as well. No reason to tell you every single detail.
Don't tell me everything, but I'm pretty sure I know. Like, I'm pretty sure I've seen the ending to this game, but that's fine. We don't need to talk about that here on air. Anything else you want to talk about with Crisis Core here?
Not really. You know, it's a $50 game. It's not full priced because it doesn't have as much content as a full priced game would have, and I would feel slighted if I bought this and it came out looking the way it did for $70.
Yeah,
and with the not so good story would kind of put a hamper on that as well. But it's not. It's $50. So I recommend anyone who has any interest at all in learning the prequel of Final Fantasy VII, or someone who's looking to jump into Final Fantasy VII, play it. Honestly, this some people might have an issue with this. I think you can play this as your first Final Fantasy VII game. You know, I don't think it really. Well, no, never mind.
I don't think I don't think this does a good job of selling you on the world of Final Fantasy VII.
That, and then also it would ruin some plot points. Never mind.
Yeah. I would definitely either start with the original or play Remake. With where the Remake story is right now, because Remake is just going to inspire you to play the original game like it did for me, and then this is just like a fun, like, because you don't need this. This isn't necessary knowledge. They cover all the important information in the main game. This is just something nice to just flush out the character of Zack a little more, to fill in a couple of gaps, a couple of holes in the story. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I would not recommend this as your first time player. I had something, then I've forgotten it. This being a more traditional remake, $50 is a good asking price. I'm just grateful that it's, it doesn't look the best. It doesn't, play the best. It's not the best part of the story, and it's not the best, acting and so forth. But it's just nice to have this game off of outdated hardware. This was trapped on the PSP for years, and to just have it as a more accessible option now that plays a little better, looks a little better, works a little better. It's not the best game in the world, but it's a really fun game, and it's a really cool and interesting part of a story of some really excellent games that are, this is a little more accessible than the original Final Fantasy VII because of the age of that. God, this is such a cool moment. Anyways, that I'm spoiling in a B-roll. But yeah, I agree with you, Connor. This is a lot of fun. Good time. Fully recommend it, especially if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan.
Yeah. I got 2 more points to finish things up. One that I forgot. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, easily contains the worst Moogle design they look weird. They look like they're pedophiles or something. I really don't like the look of them. Like they got weird, dark, beady eyes. Like they're gonna, have dark thoughts all the time, and they're just on the brink of carrying it out. Just something. It's just weird. They look weird. Did you see them? Have you seen them yet?
I don't think I've seen them yet. No.
Tell me.
Moogles are the little like white things, right? The bear like things.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a design. Everyone uses that design. They did change, like Bahamut doesn't usually look like this, and the
No, but
Moogle doesn't usually look like this.
He looks so badass here, though. Bahamut.
Yeah, he does. People, I remember saw someone saying it was his persona, like it was the Bahamut version persona. Hey, I won't say no.
Okay,
but
so I'm looking at the originals. Yeah, this
yeah,
is a Moogle.
yeah,
Yeah, a little cat
it's a
thing. All
Moogle.
right, but what is he in
Pretty
crisis
iconic.
for?
Yeah, you just go look that up. I just don't like him. I just don't like. And he's got like a more elongated abdomen, and it's just when you're trying to make a cute thing, you make it more compact. That's what you do. Small things are cute inherently. So
Connor, I don't know,
like,
man. This looks like I found it. Oh, yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, he looks weird, doesn't he?
No, he looks like a fucking because like the Moogle is more like cat-like almost.
Mm-hmm.
This is straight up a teddy bear.
Yeah,
but it's like all white and like it look. No, I don't like that. No, I agree with you. That does not look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, that's it's only gonna be in this game where it's an issue, so that's fine. The other thing to finish my final thought on it is, this is gonna sound very pathetic to some, but it's funny to me. The very first Final Fantasy VII game that I played was not the original Final Fantasy VII. The first one I played was Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus, the game that takes place after Final Fantasy VII. I played it when I was younger on PS2. I had a very weird experience. I can barely recall the plot of it because it was very confusing.
Nobody likes that game, by the way. For those who don't know, nobody likes that. Nobody likes it.
I don't have a negative impression because I had nothing to base it off of. But what I do know is that I can look back on it and say that the writing was bad. So paired with Final Fantasy VII, it's probably even worse than I can possibly imagine. But they tie into it in this game. I'm not going to say how. It doesn't really matter because they're probably never going to bring it back. But I was kind of shocked because I was like, wait, this somehow relates to it? Which apparently, I'm tempted to look back at that plot to see how exactly it factors into it. Because I don't remember that at all from my old playthrough of that game.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I want them to do a remake of it. I want to play that game again.
I think they will.
I think they will too.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Because they seem all in. Like, they're continuing the Final Fantasy 16s, and we'll get 17s and so forth, whatever. But they seem to just be fully intending to, like, just dive deep into Final Fantasy 7. And to be just really nerdy, there were it's always been rumored and, like, a fan theory that Final Fantasy 7 and 10 take place in the same universe. And they added some stuff in 7 Remake to make it seem more like that, but we'll see. So maybe we'll even get remakes of 10.
That is most likely. I actually remember reading an interview. I think it was with the director of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Don't quote me on that, but they were apparently the decision was either to remake from the ground up Final Fantasy VII or 6. 10 is also extremely popular, so I could see that. That or 6 would be the other bets for doing a new interesting remake. So, yeah, I agree with you, though. That'd be pretty interesting if they did 10.
Right. Now, final question to you, Connor, as the Final Fantasy VII fan here. We are doing Game Club, and this question is going to pertain to something so far into the future that it doesn't even matter. So next week, we have our Game Club review for Batman Arkham Asylum going live. And I'm curious to know your opinion of, currently the original Final Fantasy VII is in our list in Game Club, and if the wheel so decides to play Final Fantasy VII, all three of us are going to play the original Final Fantasy VII from beginning to end. Now the question is, Connor, you and I both agreed that you had to play the original before you play Remake.
Yeah.
Do you think this goes before Remake or after it, or does it matter?
I so would rather jump into Remake, but I think this would matter more. Just because the elements that the parts of this game that are related to Final Fantasy VII Remake would add some background to it. But is it? Nah.
I don't think it adds enough.
It might not. No.
I think you get the point. Otherwise,
Yeah. And I like the Remake so much.
Yeah. I think we just put both of them in the list at the same time.
Let fate decide.
Whatever the wheel decides is what the wheel decides.
I'm down for that. That's
good. That makes sense
option
to me. There we go. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our review of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you so much for sticking around with us through our 35-minute conversation on it. It's a good time. Probably go check it out. Or if you're just a fan, thanks for listening to us nerd out about it for a little while. You can find this, as always, over at youtube.com/2pennygames and attached to the 2 Penny Games cast, which goes live every Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. If you're listening from the podcast, thank you so much for watching and listening and sticking with us. See, I told you we'd get Connor, your little dabble of Connor in this week, even though we had to do the main cast with Phil this week. But until next time, everyone have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Bye. Merry Christmas.